Jacob and Ethan had been best friends for years. They had shared countless moments, from childhood games to deep late-night talks. Their friendship was strong, built on trust and understanding. But one night, everything changed. Ethan made a careless mistake and told a secret that Jacob had trusted him with. It seemed small at first, but the consequences were huge. The next day, Jacob found out, and his trust in Ethan was shattered. In a heated conversation, Jacob asked, "How could you do this to me?" Ethan apologized, but it was too late. The damage had been done, and the friendship they once had now felt broken forever. After the betrayal, things between Jacob and Ethan became tense. The once close friends now avoided each other, not speaking or making eye contact. Jacob couldn't understand how Ethan could hurt him like this, especially when they had been through so much together. Ethan tried to reach out, sending messages and trying to apologize, but Jacob refused to respond. "Why won't you just listen?" Ethan thought, the guilt gnawing at him, following him everywhere. The trust they once shared felt like it was gone forever. The two men were left in silence, each carrying the weight of their actions, but unsure if they could ever make things right again. Weeks went by, and Jacob began to feel the weight of his anger and hurt. He realized that holding on to the past wasn't helping him move forward. One afternoon, he found himself standing by the lake-here place that held so many memories of better times with Ethan. As he looked at the still water, he remembered the laughter they once shared. It hurt, but there was a small part of him that wondered if forgiveness was possible. Jacob wasn't sure if he was ready to face Ethan, but the thought of losing their friendship forever pushed him to take a step. He sent Ethan a message. "We need to talk." A part of him was willing to try and rebuild what was lost. Jacob and Ethan finally met after weeks of silence. The tension between them was unbearable. Neither of them knew what to say, but they both knew they needed to confront the situation. Ethan, nervous and full of regret, apologized, admitting that he never meant to hurt Jacob, but Jacob's pain was too deep to ignore. He confronted Ethan, asking, "How could you betray me after all we've been through together?" Ethan's words were sincere, but Jacob's trust had already been shattered. The air between them grew heavier with every word, as they both realized that the damage might be too great to fix. Still, they both stood there, unsure of what would happen next. The days passed, and both Jacob and Ethan struggled with the weight of the situation. Jacob wrestled with the idea of forgiveness, torn between the memories of their friendship and the betrayal that had occurred. He realized that holding on to the hurt would only keep him trapped in the past. Ethan, on the other hand, was consumed by guilt. He could see the pain he had caused Jacob, and it ate away at him. Despite his efforts to apologize and make things right, nothing seemed enough. One evening, Jacob sat alone in the park, looking up at the stars. He realized that if he didn't find a way to let go of the past, he might never move forward. The choice to forgive wasn't just for Ethan, it was for him too. Weeks passed without much change, but one evening, Ethan showed up at Jacob's door. He was holding a wooden box, something they had created together years ago, a symbol of their friendship. Ethan explained that he couldn't undo what had happened, but he wanted to offer something meaningful to show his regret. Jacob, holding the box in his hands, felt a rush of memories flood back. It wasn't enough to erase the past, but it was a gesture that spoke volumes. As he held the box, Jacob realized that this simple, honest act might just be the first step toward rebuilding their broken bond. Jacob spent days thinking about the box that Ethan had given him. The memories it held were overwhelming, reminding him of a friendship that had once been strong. Ethan waited for Jacob's response, but Jacob wasn't sure if he could just let go of the past so easily. The hurt still lingered deep inside. Finally, Jacob spoke up, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know if I can just let this go." Ethan, understanding the weight of Jacob's words, admitted that he couldn't change the past, but he was here to show he was sorry. As Jacob stared at Ethan, something inside him shifted. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, but about moving forward together. A small flicker of hope started to rise inside him. Maybe their friendship could still be salvaged. Ethan had been carrying guilt for so long, and Jacob began to understand just how much that burden had affected him. One afternoon, Ethan invited Jacob to meet at the lake, the place where they had once shared many memories. This time, there were no words of apology. Instead, Ethan handed Jacob a letter that he had written in silence for days. The letter was filled with Ethan's thoughts, explaining how he had betrayed not just Jacob, but their trust and the bond they had built over the years. As Jacob read the letter, he realized that both of them had been hurt by the same situation, and that they were both carrying the weight of the past. Jacob finally understood just how much this meant to Ethan. He wasn't the only one suffering. Days passed, and both Jacob and Ethan continued to rebuild their friendship, piece by piece. It wasn't easy. The past still loomed over them, but there was a sense of hope. One evening, as they sat together by the lake, Jacob broke the silence. I admit it," he said softly. "Things might never be the same between us, but I'm willing to try." Ethan, filled with relief, couldn't believe what he was hearing. Jacob was ready to forgive. They both realized that it wasn't about going back to the way things were, but about building something new, something stronger. The future was still uncertain, but they were ready to face it together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they both felt the weight of the past lifting and the promise of a new beginning. Jacob and Ethan had spent weeks mending their broken friendship, slowly rebuilding trust and understanding. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments when the past would threaten to pull them apart, but they kept pushing forward. One afternoon, they met at their old hangout spot, the place where they had shared so many memories. The air felt different now, lighter, as if the weight of the past had started to lift. Ethan spoke first, his voice steady but filled with emotion, acknowledging that they could never go back to the way things were. "But," he added, his gaze softening, "I believe we can build something new." Jacob, looking out at the horizon, agreed, his voice barely above a whisper. They had both made mistakes, but they wouldn't let that define them. They couldn't change what had happened, but they could choose how to move forward. In that moment, Jacob and Ethan both knew that their friendship wasn't built on perfection, but on the willingness to forgive and grow together. As the sun set, casting a golden light over Meadow Ridge, they shared a quiet moment of understanding, their hearts heavy with the weight of the past, yet hopeful for the future. They were ready to face whatever came next together.